Millionaire saw his maid embarrassed on a blind date with only $1. But what happened next will leave you speechless. You're scrolling through social media when suddenly a video pops up that makes your blood boil. A young woman, clearly nervous, sitting across from a man who's about to destroy her dignity for internet clout. That's exactly what happened when Amira's world came crashing down in the most public way possible. But before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with your friends because trust me, you'll want to discuss this one. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I genuinely want to hear your perspective on what unfolds. Amira had always been the invisible one. She was the quiet maid who worked diligently in tech millionaire Zayn Okonkwo's sprawling mansion, polishing marble floors and dusting priceless art pieces. She moved through the halls like a ghost, never speaking unless spoken to, never drawing attention to herself. Her world was simple: wake up, work, go home to her tiny apartment, repeat. She had accepted her place in life. While Zayn hosted glamorous parties with Lagos's elite, she served drinks and cleaned up afterward. While his fiancée Stella flaunted designer gowns and diamond jewelry, Amira wore the same 3 dresses she'd owned for years. She wasn't bitter about it, she was grateful for steady work that paid her bills and sent a little money home to her mother in the village. But her best friend Kemi had other plans. "Amira, you're 25 and you've never been on a proper date," Kemi declared one evening, waving her phone dramatically. "I'm signing you up for this dating app whether you like it or not." "Kemi, please don't," Amira protested, but her friend was already typing furiously. "I don't have money for fancy dates. I don't even know how to talk to men." "That's exactly why you need this," Kemi insisted. "Just one date. What's the worst that could happen?" Famous last words. Within days, Amira was matched with someone called Jay. His profile showed a handsome man in expensive clothes, and his messages seemed charming enough. When he suggested meeting at Jade Palace, one of Lagos's most exclusive restaurants, Amira's stomach dropped. "I can't afford that place," she told Kemi nervously. "Just go," Kemi encouraged. "Maybe he'll pay. Rich guys always pay." Amira spent her last savings on transport and wore her only decent dress, a simple blue number she'd bought 2 years ago for a cousin's wedding. She counted her money 3 times, exactly $1. Enough for pure water and maybe a small snack if things went terribly wrong. The restaurant was everything she'd feared. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow patterns across white tablecloths, and the other diners wore clothes that probably cost more than her monthly salary. She felt like an imposter as the hostess led her to a corner table where Jay was already waiting. He looked her up and down with barely concealed disgust. "You're Amira?" he asked, not bothering to stand or shake her hand. "Yes, nice to meet you," she replied softly, sliding into her chair. The evening went downhill from there. Jay ordered expensive wine and multiple courses while Amira sat with her hands folded, too embarrassed to admit she couldn't afford anything on the menu. "So what do you do?" he asked, filming her with his phone. I work in domestic services," she said carefully. "A maid," he laughed loudly, drawing stares from nearby tables. "I should have known from your outfit." Amira's cheeks burned. She wanted to leave, but she'd already spent her transport money getting there. When the bill came, Jay's performance began in earnest. "So, how are we splitting this?" he announced loudly, making sure his phone was recording. "I mean, you insisted on coming to such an expensive place." I only have $1, Amira whispered, mortified. $1? Jay's voice carried across the restaurant. "You came to Jade Palace with $1? Other diners turned to stare. Some pulled out their phones. The humiliation was complete when Jay stood up and addressed the room like he was performing on stage. "Ladies and gentlemen, my date here brought exactly $1 to cover her share of a $200 meal. Can you believe this?" Amira wanted to disappear. She fumbled in her purse, pulling out the crumpled bill with shaking hands. Please, she whispered. I can wash dishes or something. But Jay was already posting the video online with the caption, "Broke maid shows up to date with $1, watch her face when he exposes her." By morning, it had gone viral. The video spread like wildfire across social media platforms. Within hours, Amira's face was everywhere: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. The comments were brutal. People called her delusional, gold digger, attention seeker. Memes were created with her embarrassed expression. She became the internet's latest laughingstock. Amira didn't go to work the next day. She couldn't face leaving her apartment, knowing that millions of people had watched her humiliation. Her phone buzzed constantly with notifications, each one feeling like another stab to her already wounded pride. She turned it off and buried herself under her blankets, wishing she could disappear forever. Meanwhile, at the Okonkwo mansion, Zayn was in his home office reviewing quarterly reports when his assistant Marcus burst in without knocking. "Sir, you need to see this," Marcus said, holding up his tablet with barely contained anger. Zayn looked up, annoyed at the interruption. "What's so urgent that you forgot how to knock?" "It's about Amira, sir. Someone recorded her on a date and, it's everywhere." Zayn's expression shifted instantly. He'd always noticed Amira, her quiet dignity, the way she never complained despite working longer hours than anyone else, how she always asked about his day with genuine concern. There was something pure about her that stood out in his world of calculated relationships and social climbing. He watched the video once. Then again. His jaw tightened with each viewing. "Who is this man?" Zayn asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "Some influencer called Jay. The video has over 2 million views already." Zayn stood up abruptly, his chair rolling backward. "Get me everything on this Jay character. Phone records, social media, bank statements. I want to know who he is and who's paying him. Sir. Nobody humiliates my staff like this. Nobody." Within an hour, Zayn had all the information he needed. But first, he had a public statement to make. He opened his verified social media accounts, followed by millions due to his tech empire success, and began typing. The post was simple but powerful: "That's my staff. That's my responsibility. She's worth more than your entire brand." But Zayn wasn't finished. He opened his banking app and made a live transfer of $50,000 directly to Amira's account, posting the screenshot for everyone to see. The internet exploded. Within minutes, the narrative completely shifted. Comments flooded in supporting Amira and condemning Jay. People began sharing their own stories of financial struggles and dating disasters. The hashtag Team Amira started trending worldwide. Jay's followers began abandoning him in droves. Brands that had sponsored him started pulling their partnerships. The restaurant where he'd humiliated Amira issued a public apology and banned him permanently. But Zayn still wasn't satisfied. He drove to Amira's apartment building, a modest complex in a middle-class neighborhood that he'd never visited before. He climbed 3 flights of stairs and knocked on her door. Amira opened it with swollen eyes and tear-stained cheeks. When she saw her boss standing there in his expensive suit, she nearly collapsed. "Mr. Okonkwo, I'm so sorry," she began, but he held up his hand. "May I come in?" Her tiny apartment was spotless but sparse. A small sofa, a television that had seen better days, and family photos on every available surface. It was humble but filled with love, so different from his mansion's cold perfection. "Amira, look at me," he said gently. "You have nothing to apologize for. That man is a predator who targeted you deliberately. But the video, everyone's seen it. I've brought shame to your household." "The only shame belongs to him," Zayn said firmly. "I've already had my lawyers send him a cease and desist order. The video will be taken down, and he'll face consequences for harassment." Amira stared at him in disbelief. "Why are you helping me? I'm just your maid." You're not just anything, Zayn replied, his voice softer than she'd ever heard it. You're the person who remembers my coffee preferences without being asked. You're the one who waters my mother's plants in the garden because you know they meant something to me. You're the woman who works harder than anyone I know and never complains. Tears rolled down Amira's cheeks. I don't know what to say. Say you'll come back to work tomorrow. Say you won't let some internet troll destroy your spirit. But people will recognize me now. They'll whisper and point. Zayn pulled out his phone and showed her the latest social media updates. Look at this. Hashtag Team Amira is trending. People are calling you brave for handling that situation with dignity. You're not a laughingstock, you're an inspiration. The comments had indeed shifted. Women were sharing their own stories of financial struggles and dating disasters. Men were condemning Jay's behavior and praising Amira's grace under pressure. Celebrities were weighing in with support. I transferred some money to your account, Zayn said casually. Consider it a bonus for all your hard work. $50,000 isn't a bonus, Mr. Okonkwo. It's life-changing. Good. You deserve to have your life changed for the better. As he prepared to leave, Amira grabbed his arm gently. Thank you. I'll never forget this kindness. Zayn looked down at her hand on his arm, then into her eyes. For a moment, something passed between them, an understanding, a connection that went beyond employer and employee. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow we figure out who's really behind this. The investigation didn't take long. Zayn's private security team was thorough, and Jay wasn't as clever as he thought. By the next evening, Zayn had the full picture, and it made his blood boil in ways he'd never experienced. Jay wasn't some random influencer looking for content. He was a hired actor, paid handsomely to orchestrate Amira's humiliation. The money trail led directly to an account controlled by someone Zayn trusted implicitly, his fiancée, Stella. Zayn sat in his study, staring at the evidence spread across his mahogany desk. Bank transfers, text messages, even a signed contract outlining exactly how Jay should humiliate the maid to ensure maximum viral impact. Stella had planned everything meticulously, down to choosing the most expensive restaurant to amplify Amira's embarrassment. The betrayal cut deeper than any business deal gone wrong. This wasn't about money or power, this was about destroying an innocent woman's life out of pure jealousy. When Stella arrived for their dinner date that evening, she was practically glowing with satisfaction. She'd spent the day fielding congratulatory calls from her socialite friends, all praising Zayn's charitable gesture toward his staff. Darling, you were so generous with that maid, she said, kissing his cheek. Though $50,000 seems excessive for someone in her position. Her position? Zayn's voice was ice cold. Well, yes. She's just domestic help. I'm sure she's grateful, but we shouldn't encourage this sort of reaching above one's station. Zayn placed the contract on the table between them. Stella's face went white. Care to explain this? For a moment, Stella tried to maintain her composure. I don't know what that is. It's a contract you signed, paying Jay $5,000 to humiliate Amira on camera. Your signature, your account, your plan. The mask finally slipped. Stella's perfectly composed expression cracked, revealing something ugly underneath. She was getting too comfortable, Stella snapped. I saw how you looked at her, how you asked about her day, how you actually listened when she spoke. A maid, Zayn. You were falling for a maid. So you decided to destroy her. I decided to remind her of her place. And you of yours. Stella's voice rose to a shriek. We're supposed to be married in 3 months. I wasn't going to let some nobody ruin everything I've worked for. Zayn stood slowly, his movements deliberate and controlled. Everything you've worked for? You mean marrying me for my money? Don't be naive. Love is a luxury for people who don't understand how the world really works. I bring you social connections, political influence, the right kind of wife for a man in your position. And what does Amira bring? Nothing. She's nobody. She brings honesty, Zayn said quietly. She brings kindness without expecting anything in return. She brings genuine care for other people's well-being. She brings everything you lack. Stella laughed bitterly. You think you can have a real relationship with your maid? The media will destroy you. Your business partners will question your judgment. Your mother would roll over in her grave. My mother would have loved Amira, Zayn replied. She valued character over pedigree. Something I forgot until recently. He pulled the engagement ring from his pocket, the 5-carat diamond Stella had specifically requested, and placed it on the table next to the contract. We're done, Stella. The engagement is off. I'll have my lawyers contact yours about returning the gifts and canceling the wedding arrangements. You're making the biggest mistake of your life. No, Zayn said, walking toward the door. The biggest mistake was not seeing who you really were sooner. The next morning, Amira arrived at work early, as always. She'd spent the night thinking about Zayn's kindness and trying to process how dramatically her life had changed. The $50,000 sat in her account like a dream she was afraid to believe. She was arranging flowers in the main hallway when Zayn appeared, looking tired but determined. Amira, we need to talk. Her heart sank. Are you firing me? I understand if the attention is too much for your household. Quite the opposite. I need to tell you something about your date. He explained everything, Stella's jealousy, the hired actor, the deliberate setup designed to humiliate her. Amira listened in stunned silence, her hands trembling as the full scope of the betrayal became clear. She did all that, because of me. Because she saw what I was too blind to admit to myself, Zayn said softly. That I've been falling in love with you for months. Amira's breath caught. Mr. Okonkwo. Zayn. Please, just Zayn. This is impossible. We're from different worlds. Are we? You make me laugh. You challenge me to be better. You see past the money and the status to who I really am. Isn't that what matters? Tears filled Amira's eyes. People will say terrible things. They'll call me a gold digger, say I seduced you for your money. Let them talk. I've spent my whole life caring what other people think, choosing partners based on what looked good on paper instead of what felt right in my heart. I'm done with that. Amira looked around the mansion, the marble floors she'd cleaned, the artwork she'd dusted, the life she'd observed from the shadows. I should resign. This is too complicated. No, Zayn said firmly, stepping closer. I've waited too long to find someone real. Let me take you out, this time, no apps, no scripts, no hidden agendas. Just us. He reached for her hands, and she didn't pull away. Just dinner, he continued. Somewhere simple where we can talk without crystal chandeliers and judgmental stares. Let me show you how a real man treats a woman he cares about. Amira looked into his eyes and saw something she'd never seen before, genuine love, respect, and the promise of a future she'd never dared to imagine. Okay, she whispered. Just dinner. Sometimes love finds us in the most unexpected places, wearing work clothes instead of designer gowns, speaking softly instead of demanding attention. Amira's story reminds us that true worth isn't measured in dollars or status, but in the kindness we show others and the authenticity we bring to every relationship. When someone sees your heart before your circumstances, when they defend your dignity without expecting anything in return, that's when you know you found something precious. Love doesn't always arrive in a limousine, sometimes it's been quietly working beside you all along, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself.